Charlie, Charlie Kirky. I spot the perky. Charlie, Charlie Kirky. I just... Charlie, Charlie Kirky.
Dorfidoodle is the winner number 1.
This land is your land, and this land is my land. From the California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me. As I went a-walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway, saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. I roamed and rambled, and I followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts. All around me a voice was sounding, this land was made for you and me. When the sun comes shining, then I was strolling, and the wheat fields waving, and the dust clouds rolling. The voice was chanting as the fog was lifting, this land was made for you and me. This land is your land, and this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Charlie, and today we're on Unit 2 of the American Experiment. Yes, today we are talking about the birth of this nation. Well, I'm not going to say birth of a nation. That is a horrible movie that was made in the late 1920s. It was black and white. Actually, it might have been 1918. Now I have to look it up. Anyway, Birth of a Nation was a movie made by Ku Klux Klan members to basically talk about how great everything was before the Civil War and why racism is good. 1915, damn it! This machine kills fascists. I saw John had it on his computer in yesterday's video. Yep. All right, so yeah, terrible movie. It actually helped bring back a lot of like racist ideals, both back. It made racists more emboldened is probably the better word. But yeah, this is from 2000 and no, from 13 years ago. 2013. It's from 2013, right? 2026 minus 13. That can't be right. Anyway, yeah, he's had that on there for a while. These guys have been like super, super like progressive, leftist, like they're really cool. And like, how could you be a scientist and not, you know? Had this like, okay, so I had my hair back in like little pigtails, and then the rubber band snapped like literally as I hit going live. And I was like, okay, but I had a little hairpin back there to hold some of my extra hair. But anyway, hi everybody. How are you? Happy Monday. It's 64 degrees here in South Jersey, and it was sunny today. The last 2 days it was rainy. I don't know if there's any personal news to go over. Oh, I finished the vlog. Yes, week 2 is up. And it's not as good as week 1, but I will let you know I had just as much fun making it. I have been having a blast editing it, and like being able to like sit down and actually like edit something and play with the software is so much fun. And like I found a website where I could take a YouTube video and input the link and it'll turn it into a GIF. Yes, I did use that. Yes, I had to take a few sounds and only get the audio from it, but hey, your girl did some edits and I was pretty happy about that. So I'll start filming again probably tonight, depending on how stream goes and my battery charger. Because last week I filmed on Monday night immediately after uh stream was done on 420. And it looks it. There's so much I had to like cut. Like a lot. I think I uploaded like the original, like when everything was dropped into the timeline. I think I think when I was dropped, like every bit of footage was in the video only timeline. I think I was close to like 45 minutes to an hour, and I whittled it down to like, I think 18 minutes after like 4 hours. Like if I subtract all the times I like had to stop and start, like get up, go do something, drink some water, like go for a smoke, go drop the kids off to school. If I like, took just straight editing time, I think it was about 4 hours. And I think I could do better too. I think I could definitely do better. But what else have I done? I'm still sore from the gym, but I did message my friend today and I was like, "Can we go back? Can you hurt me more, please?" Do I like not being able to go up and down my stairs? No. Is it kind of funny when I do? Yeah. I had to go down on my butt yesterday. Like I had to like use my arms to get down because I was like, I'm not bending anymore. It's either that or I'm sliding. Like it's those two things are happening. Because I can't do it. It was like every time. And like I'm used to like if I leave anything upstairs, I'm more than happy to go back up and get it because I like that extra like movement through the day, keep myself on my toes, and I'm always forgetting stuff. So the easiest thing to do is just go up there and look. And when you're in that habit and your legs hurt from working out, it's hard to not do that. But there were a lot of yelps of pain over the last few days, but today is probably the better of the three. I think we're over the hump. I think tomorrow I'll be back at it. My biggest problem is I'm not hydrated enough, and that I'm probably not having enough like potassium. So more bananas, more 2 bananas a day instead of 1. But hydration is also key. Probably a big reason why everything hurts. But
I drink and I know things.
thank you.
Chris 66727 would like you to drink something.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm John Green. This is
All right, to the lesson because I'm going to drink some water. I have enough stalling.
Crash Course U.S. History, and today we're going to discuss the events that led to the American Revolution. So we'll begin with the 7 Years' War, which as Crash Course World History fans will remember Winston Churchill.
Does anybody from England know about the 7 Years' War? Also, it's also used to be taught as like the French and Indian War, but that's politically incorrect. Don't say that anymore. Or like French and First Natives, but that's also not correct.
Referred to as the First World War. The Americans called it the French and Indian War. The Prussians called it the Third Silesian War.
I should just let him talk. I don't know why I'm interrupting.
Swedes called it the Pomeranian War. For today, we're just going to call it the 7 Years' War on account of how it lasted for 9 years.
Oh, side note, I'm really excited for Minecraft tonight. I was thinking about how I want to start building that house on top of that like floating-ish rock we saw. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do a castle. I kind of wouldn't mind doing like a witch hut, but I also don't know what to do. So my main priority and main focus tonight is making a bucket. Need to make a bucket so I can get some water, so I can dump some water out as a source block up there and use that in an elevator to get up and down the side of the thing faster than digging it. But please remind me to get a bucket later.
So here at Crash Course, we take a broad view of history, and rather than talking about the minute details of wars, we try to focus on the important stuff. Causes, effects, anytime Vladimir Putin might show up, and teacup kittens. And as far as causes go, the 7 Years' War was really, like most wars, about economics. Mr. Green, is this economics class? Because I don't remember signing up for it. Yeah, this is economics class, me from the past. It's economics and religion and psychology and anthropology.
It's amazing how many things like politics is intertwined with. Like it is truly like an art form, and like life imitates art, so art's going to be dictated by the politics around it. Like people in the Renaissance period or before then would buy paintings, so their money dictated what was painted and dictated what the art was at the time. So like that's wild to think that politics did that, you know? Like the politics were in place where people could have that money to spend and other people didn't.
And astronomy and physics and ecology and literature. That's the great thing about history. You can't put the past into little boxes that you study for 50 minutes a day until the bell rings.
Saying the same
you
thing.
Can't separate what happened from what people wanted and believed and valued. Right, so mercantilism was the key economic theory of the British Empire in the 18th century. Because while Adam Smith and David Ricardo were talking up free trade and economic liberalism by 1750, no one was really listening. Mercantilism was basically the idea that the government should regulate the economy in order to increase national power.
Oh, this part's gonna be right up your alley, Chris, because this is all about tariffs. I'm so excited.
Encouraging local production through tariffs and monopolies, and also trying to ensure a favorable balance of trade. And colonies were an awesome way to create this favorable trade balance because they both produced raw materials and bought back finished goods made from those raw materials. But for it to work, you always need more and more land, so you can have more raw materials and more colonists to buy finished goods. By the way, it's important to understand the centrality of slavery in this colonial economy. I mean, the most important colonial trade goods were tobacco and sugar, and both of those crops relied heavily on slave labor. And slaves themselves were a key trade good in the so-called triangular trade between Europe, Africa, and the colonies. As one historian put it, the growth and prosperity of the emerging society of free
Yeah, the history part of tariffs is fascinating because most times tariffs have been implemented in the United States. It's completely destroyed our economy. And like knowing that and knowing what goes into tariffs and how they work, that's hot.
Colonial British America were achieved.
It's also a strategic battlefield advantage. Like if you starve out crush your enemy's finances, like that's a great way to like get a leg up.
As a result of slave labor. So Britain's greatest rival in the 18th century was France. Like on paper, the Spanish had a more significant empire in North America, and they'd certainly been there longer, but their empire was really sparsely populated. In fact, by 1800, Los Angeles, the most populous town in Spanish California, had a population of 300 and only 17 freeways. The French colonies were considerably more populous, but even so, by 1750, they were...
That's what I should have put in the music video. I should have put the fucking freeways of LA.
Only about 65,000 French colonists, most of them in the St. Lawrence River Valley, thereabouts. I don't know, maybe it was somewhere over here. This isn't a terribly detailed map, and also I'm not looking at it. But the French were moving into the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys and forming alliances with American Indians there to try to dominate the fur and deerskin trades, and that proved problematic. So wars usually have really complicated causes, and it's very rare that we can refer to one thing as making them inevitable. Fortunately, the 7 Years' War is the exception to that rule. Dan, I think I just used the word exception, which means it's time for a mongeltage. I guess they heard there was an exception in town. So in 1749, the governor of Virginia awarded a huge land grant to something called the Ohio Company, which was basically a real estate development firm.
Oh my God. Robert Dinwiddie? Dinwiddie? Was the lieutenant governor of Virginia, but was also a stockholder in the Ohio Company. Two of George Washington's brothers, Lawrence and Augustine, were also part owners.
Designed to
conspiracy.
Benefit the governor of Virginia's friends. The Native Americans and their French supporters thought this was bad form because they thought they had rights to the land. So the Ohio Company asked the French to recognize their land claims, and the French were like, no! Let's go to the thought bubble. The actual fighting began when the British, or more precisely British colonists, led by a 21-year-old militia colonel named George Washington, yes, that George Washington, tried to eject the French from the forts they were constructing in western Pennsylvania. The first attempt in 1750.
Remember that. That'll come up later.
before was a disaster. Washington built and then abandoned the ironically named Fort Necessity
That will be
with
up.
the loss of 1/3 of his men. It was followed by the equally unsuccessful attack on Fort Duquesne, now located in downtown Pittsburgh, where the French and Indians pounded the British, killing 2/3 of General Braddock's forces and also General Braddock. Things didn't go much better for the British for the next 2 years, although they did take control of part of Nova Scotia and kick out more than 11,000 French Acadians, many of whom died in what is called the expulsion. Some of those who didn't ended up in Louisiana and became Cajuns. But anyway, the tide began to turn for the British in 1759 when they captured French forts Duquesne, finally, Ticonderoga, and Louisburg. The biggest victory of all came in September when the British trounced the French at the Plains of Abraham near Quebec. Montreal surrendered the next year. The rest of the battles aren't that important unless you were fighting in them, and I'm sure you can count on the French and Indian War aficionados to fill the gaps in comments, but suffice it to say that the British were victorious in North America, the Caribbean, Europe, and as far away as India. The war continued officially for 3 more years and ended with the Treaty of Paris in 1763. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So the most obvious result of the war was territorial changes, particularly in the green areas of not America. And even though Britain won the war, they arguably got the short end of the territorial stick. Under the terms of the Peace of Paris, Britain got Canada from France and Florida from Spain. In return, France got Guadeloupe and Martinique, Caribbean sugar islands that were much more valuable, at least monetarily, than Canada. Sorry, Canada, but if you want to be valuable, grow some sugar. And not sugar beets either, Canada. Real sugar. And Spain got Cuba with its awesome sugar trade, and the Philippines with its proximity to China, which were much more valuable than Florida. I mean, at the time, Florida did not even have Disney World. Instead, it had yellow fever. But the real losers of the war were not the British or the Spanish or the French.
Okay, fun fact. There's a graveyard in my neighborhood. Got some really old graves in it. And one of them, it has a wife and it has like the year she was born, the year she died, and like where she died. And then next to her is her husband's plot. And it says his name and it just says died in Havana, probably around. I don't think the word was probably, but it was like you know, plus or minus, whatever year, and died in Havana, Cuba. And I was like, oh no. It's just, and I guess they didn't return the body because I guess they don't know. But his plot's like a different shape. But that made me think of it. I don't know why.
The Native Americans. The shuffling of territories meant the French were out of the Mississippi and Ohio river valleys. And
Oh,
the
yellow
American
fever.
Indians were stuck.
Because I thought maybe he probably died of like yellow fever or like, I forget like all of the mosquito things. What's the one that everybody building the canal died from? Malaria.
With the British, who kind of sucked. And as the British moved west, Native Americans felt compelled to fight back. Oh, it's time for the mystery document? The rules here are simple. If I'm wrong about the author of the mystery document, I will be shocked by electricity. If I am right, I will be shocked by my knowledge of 18th century primary sources. Okay, here we go. We humbly conceive that it is contrary to the maxims of good policy and extremely dangerous to our frontiers to suffer any Indians of what tribe soever to live within the inhabited parts of this province while we are engaged in an Indian war, as experience has taught us that they are all perfidious, and their claim to freedom and independence puts it in their power to act as spies, to entertain and give intelligence to our enemies, and to furnish them with provisions and warlike stores. To this fatal intercourse between our pretended friends and open enemies, we must ascribe the greatest of the ravages and murders that have been committed in the course of this and the last Indian war. We therefore pray that this grievance be taken under consideration and remedied. Enough. Usually you either know it or you don't. And I don't. The author is clearly not an Indian. The first person plural makes me think the author is probably not an individual. Which
hold on. I'm guessing it's gonna be totally wrong. Is it like an author? I have no idea what the criteria is. I wasn't paying attention. I'm gonna say George Washington.
Harder. Certainly we're getting
In
a
a
taste of
letter.
the tension between colonists and Native Americans on the frontier. But who is writing about this tension, I have absolutely no idea. Stan, you get to shock me. Who is it? Are you serious? I told you it has to be.
The mystery document is is from 1867. I'll admit, totally not fair to get his he gets shocked anyway. I don't know how to say that
An
word.
individual person. Fine. Gah! So after the end of the 7 Years' War, American Indians organized an armed revolt. In 1763, Indians, particularly from
George
the Ottawa
Washington
and
is
Delaware
killing me
tribes,
right
launched
now.
what has come to be known as Pontiac's Rebellion. Now, of course, the rebellion ultimately failed to dislodge the British, but the Native Americans did manage to besiege Detroit and kill hundreds of settlers. And that convinced the British that if they wanted to avoid future conflicts, they should slow down the colonist settlements into the territories. So the British Parliament issued the Proclamation Line of 1763, which forbids settlement west of the Appalachian Mountains and reserved that territory for Indians. Now that sounds like a sensible policy until you remember that the British colonists had just finished fighting a war in order to get the right to move into that very territory. So the settlers duly ignored the Proclamation Line and got down to settling. The other big outcome of the 7 Years' War was that it set up the American Revolution. I mean, you've just seen colonists ignoring the British Parliament. We'll talk more about that next week, but around the end of the 7 Years' War, new ideas like republicanism were taking root in the colonies. Republicanism initially meant supporting a government without a king, but in the colonies it came to mean something broader. Now, they didn't believe that everyone was equal. Republicans believed that only property-owning citizens possessed virtue, which was defined in the 18th century not as being like morally good, but as a willingness to subordinate one's personal interest to the public good. This type of republicanism harkened back to a Roman ideal, only, you know, without Caesar stabbing and togas. Stan, I wish you would. And a second type of political philosophy grew out of ideas that in the 18th century were called liberalism. For classical liberals, the main task of government was to protect citizens' natural rights, which were defined by John Locke as life, liberty, and property. For liberals like Locke, governments were the result of a social contract whereby individuals would give up some of their liberty in exchange for a government protecting their natural rights. So republicanism and liberalism were undermining traditional political authority, and so was the Great Awakening, in which Americans awakened from being very religious to being super religious. The Great Awakening took place in the early decades of the 18th century, and it was a revitalization of religious feeling, energized by revival meetings and the introduction of new denominations. In the early part of the 17th century, most of the English colonists were Anglicans, unless you count the Catholics running Maryland. But by the time of the Great Awakening, there were also Presbyterians and Baptists and Methodists, so my! Even the old-line Congregationalist churches were challenged by so-called New Light ministers who placed less of an emphasis on predestination and more on an individual's experience of salvation or being born again. So religion became much more emotional in the colonies, especially after the arrival of the
Wait. I gotta take it back to this painting. Hold on.
born again. So religion
I understand that they are in church and they are praying, but this guy down here in the bottom looks like he's actively like sobbing. And it's like, why is this guy standing in yellow and in the center of the painting? Like, what does he represent? Why is this girl on her knees in front of him? Who is this and why is this back to the camera? This guy looks like like he just like, I don't know. Like, these guys are attached. This guy still. Oh my god, look at this guy's face over here. Oh my god. This guy's floating away. His hair is disintegrating. This guy is. Okay, I'm done.
religion became much more emotional in the colonies, especially after the arrival of the Englishman George Whitefield, who went on a preaching tour from 1739 to 1741. The main thrust of his sermons was that humans need only repent to avoid the horrors of damnation and be saved. And he believed that salvation was within each individual. It's worth noting that this rise in religious fervor was not confined to America or even to Christianity. Like, for instance, Wahhabism, the Islamic reform movement that's still very closely associated with Saudi Arabia, began in the Middle East around the same time. So one of the keys in the American Revolution was a breakdown in respect for authority. And this was fueled partly by economics, partly by political philosophies that undermined faith and governance from afar, and partly by religious revivals that criticized not only church hierarchies, but also other aspects of colonial society. I mean, if people were going so far as to criticize their religious leaders and established religious norms, is it any wonder that they would criticize the acts of a parliament working an ocean away? We'll find out next week. Thanks for watching. Crash Course is produced and directed by Stan Muller. Our script supervisor is Meredith Danko. The show is written by my high school history teacher, Raoul Meyer.
That's cute that he has this high school history teacher. All right, there is a longer video on the 7 Years' War, but I am not in the mood for that. But you know what I am in the mood for? Musicals. Yes, that's right. We're going right into Hamilton. I apologize, but this is canonically when this would happen is just prior or just after the 7 Years' War, but before the Boston Tea Party when this situation arises. So that's where we're going to start. And then it's going to get into taxes and stuff. Oh my God. I'm so excited. Mostly because I get to force you guys to listen to music I like. But it's going to be loud. loud. Wait, no, I hit the back button. Move too quick. And I'm probably gonna finish this joint over here.
How does a bastard, orphan, son of a whore and a Scotsman, dropped in the middle of a
Now
forgotten
you have to
spot?
listen. You have to listen to the lyrics, okay? That's very important. I'm not gonna interrupt them because this is the plot of everything that's about to unfold in the colonies. You passed your U.S. History 1
How
test.
does a bastard, orphan, son of a whore and a Scotsman, dropped in the middle of a forgotten spot in the Caribbean by providence, impoverished and squalor, grow up to be a hero and a scholar? The $10 founding father without a father got a lot farther by working a lot harder, by being a lot smarter, by being a self-starter. By 14 they placed him in charge of a trading charter.
And every day while slaves were being slaughtered and carted away across the waves, he struck.
I'm the damn fool that shot him.
There's a million things I haven't done, but just to pay.
What's your name, man?
Alexander Hamilton.
Okay, so what did we learn from that song, everybody? We learned some very key things. One, Alexander Hamilton is an immigrant who came to the United States for a better life because his life was absolute shit and he came from the Caribbean. Key points. Okay. We also learned that like things are going down and also that he's going to die in the end. So he's going to be a character in this story even without the musical. But it's cool that I have this as reference points because there's also characters that'll show up. Like we'll have George Washington has a song. So when we get the section about George Washington, and also when we get to the section about George III. But we're going right into the next video. And at 7:30, I'm going to switch to gaming.
This is Crash Course U.S. History, and today we begin discussing the American Revolution. So 2 things to keep in mind here. 1, the American Revolution and the American War for Independence are not the same thing. And 2, while I know this will upset some of you, the American Revolution was not really about taxes. Mr. Green, it was about tea, right? Also, it was not about tea. The Boston Tea Party was about taxes and our God-given right to smuggle.
New
It's a
York
little
City
confusing
is the
from past,
greatest
but
city
that's
in
why
the
Crash Course
world.
is here.
I know Hamilton's not 100% accurate, but it is really good at laying a foundation for what, you know, a soap opera of the Revolutionary War would look like. And so it's fun with like what little bits you can take from.
New York City is nothing without pizza.
It's not. Thank God, because after Hamilton died, didn't Hamilton die in New Jersey? Burr shot him here. Spoilers. Spoilers. I'm still History Charlie, so the hat stays on.
So as you'll recall, the 7 Years' War ended with the Treaty of Paris in 1763, which made the colonists cranky because it limited their ability to take land from the Indians, and it also left them holding the bag for a lot of war debt. Wars, as you may have noticed, are expensive, and the British government had to borrow 150 million pounds, and the interest payments on that money ate up half of the national budget. So in order to pay for the war, the British decided to raise taxes. And since the primary beneficiaries of the war had been the American colonists, the British government felt it was only fair if some of the burden fell to them. Now, taxes on colonial trade were nothing new. The British government had placed taxes on a bunch of items in order to reduce competition with Britain, including wool and hats and mole asses. Why did they place a tax on mole asses? It doesn't seem like that would be a huge market. Oh, molasses. Right, of course. But those taxes were about trying to regulate trade in a mercantilist way more than trying to pay back war debt. And also, they were easy to avoid via smuggling, which we did because this is America. But mostly the colonists were angry because they didn't have any say about the new taxes that Britain was imposing. I mean, after all, by 1760, some colonies had been setting their own taxes through their own legislatures for 100 years. So the taxes themselves weren't really the problem. It was their lack of parliamentary representation. The first purportedly oppressive tax, the Sugar Act of 1764, extended the Molasses Act by changing the tax on imports from the Caribbean from 6 cents per gallon all the way up to 3 cents per gallon. So they actually cut the tax, but they decided to start enforcing it by stamping out smuggling. And to that end, the act also gave British courts the right to try colonial smugglers, taking that power away from colonial courts, which had been notoriously lenient when it came to smuggling on account of how they enjoyed smuggled rum as much as the next guy. But those initial acts weren't nearly as annoying as the Stamp Act, passed in 1765. The Stamp Act declared that all printed material had to carry a stamp. Unsurprisingly, that stamp was not free. This was purely to gain revenue for Britain, and it mostly affected people who used a lot of paper, you know, like newspaper printers and lawyers, just the kind of people you want to anger about taxes. So in October...
Yeah, because it's used for like any kind of like professional paperwork. It's not meant for like, you know, I guess some letters, but like more formal letters.
Protesters organized
official
the Stamp
letters,
Act
I guess.
Congress, which after a meeting decided to boycott British goods. And this was the first major coordinated action by all the colonies together. And it might be the first time that we can speak of the colonies acting in a united way, almost like, say, a government. Committees of correspondence, which had been created to encourage opposition to earlier acts, now grew to coordinate the boycott efforts, and they helped people become more aware of their liberties. And they also spurred street actions that occasionally became violent. These direct actions were organized by groups.
There was somebody in the background.
And they also
Hold on.
spurred street actions that
Yeah, there's people hanging. Oh, geez.
occasionally became violent. These direct actions were organized by groups calling themselves the Sons of Liberty.
Oh, it's
and
Snake.
guess what? Coordinated
Where's
action
Blue?
worked. The British Parliament repealed the Stamp Act, but they did pass the Declaratory Act, which was all like, listen, you're not the boss of us. We can tax you. We don't want to tax you right now as it happens, but we could if we wanted to, but we won't, but we could. So the repeal of the Stamp Act was seen by many in the colonies as a huge victory, but most of the people organizing the protests were elites, you know, the kind of people who use paper. But once you start talking about the idea of representation, everybody wants in. Meanwhile, Great Britain still needed money, so Chancellor of the Exchequer Charles Townshend got Parliament to pass new taxes in 1767. The so-called Townshend Acts also created a new Board of Customs to stop smuggling, which we didn't like one bit. You don't like it when I say we? Well, tough luck. I'm an American. Bring back the Libertage, Stan. Many colonists again responded with a boycott, and women got in on the act this time, with the Daughters of Liberty encouraging homespun clothes to replace British ones. But not all the states were on board. Like, artisans loved the boycotts because they got more money. But merchants from cities like Philadelphia and New York weren't so happy because they made their livings by importing and selling the very goods that were now being boycotted. On occasion, protests did get out of hand, as in the Boston Massacre of March 5th, 1770, which, while it was not much of a massacre,
We'll have a bigger video on that later.
was definitely the worst outcome of a snowball fight in American history. I mean, 5 colonists were killed, including most famously Crispus Attucks, a sailor of mixed-race ancestry. And then of the 9 British soldiers put on trial, 7 were acquitted and 2 were convicted only of manslaughter thanks to the top-notch lawyering of one John Adams. Don't worry, though, that guy comes around to the American cause. But overall, boycotts and protests were effective, and British merchants pushed for the repeal of these acts, leaving only a tax on tea. Let's go to the thought bubble. The 1773 Tea Act offered tax exemptions and rebates for tea coming in from the British East India Company, which allowed them to dump cheap tea on the colonies, which actually lowered the price of tea. So why were the colonists so mad that on December 16, 1773, they dressed up as Indians and dumped enough tea into Boston Harbor to cause the modern equivalent of a $4 million loss? Some colonists were upset that cheap tea would cut into the profits of smugglers and established tea merchants, but most were just angry on principle. To our great national shame, tea was at the time as important a beverage in the colonies as it was to Brits living in Britain, and to allow the British to tax a near universal product set a precedent that Britain could tax whatever they wanted. But the Tea Partiers miscalculated, thinking that the British would back down in response to their protest. Instead, the British responded by passing a series of acts that colonists came to call the Intolerable Acts. The Massachusetts Government Act curtailed self-government there. The Quartering Act forced colonists to house British soldiers in their homes when ordered to. The Quebec Act extended the southern boundary of Quebec and granted religious toleration to Catholics, which was none too popular with the Great Awakening crowd having recently awoken. The colonial response to these acts is really the start of the American Revolution. First, Massachusetts passed a set of resolutions calling for colonists to 1. Disobey the Intolerable Acts, 2. Stop paying taxes, and 3. Prepare for war. And in September 1774, a group of delegates from
God, why are we always the villains? Yeah, I know. Did you know this yet? Or at all? There's worse stuff. Like, he's giving it, like, this is the the gloss over. I'll have more in-depth stuff about it, but it's like, it's bad.
12
And it just makes me mad about what's happening right now, because, like, you see the same thing with, like, how our rights are getting trampled right now, and it makes me so frustrated. Like, history repeats itself all the time. Oh, we did so much worse.
of the 13 colonies, Georgia, met in Philadelphia to coordinate the resistance of the Intolerable Act. This was the first Continental Congress, which in setting up the Continental Association to police the boycott and encourage domestic manufacturing was the first real colony-wide government in British America. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So this sort of phenomenon is known by historians as kind of a big deal. I mean, coordinating action to achieve some end is what governments do, so it's not an exaggeration to say that the first Continental Congress was the first government of America. You might even say that sending delegates to Philadelphia in 1774 was the first truly revolutionary act of the American Revolution, but it was not a call for independence. However, there was a changing attitude among many colonists, because rather than seeing themselves as standing up for their rights as English people, they began to make claims based on abstract ideas about freedom and natural rights. In this respect, the Continental Congress was between worlds, because it justified its actions as liberties of free and natural-born subjects within the realm of England, but it also talked about immutable laws of nature. And this idea that all humans have certain rights derived from natural law has become a pretty big deal, not just in the United States, but also in the green lands of not America. I mean, these days, human rights is a phrase that we bandy about with Putin. Do you show up every time the words human rights are mentioned to make sure that we're talking about China and not you? And this brings me back to an important point. Although we tend to equate the two, the American Revolution and the American War for Independence were not the same thing. I mean, for one thing, the fighting started 15 months before the Declaration of Independence. For another, simply declaring independence does not make you an independent nation, as I will now demonstrate. I hereby declare this studio the independent nation of John Green, Sylvania. Yeah, see, nothing happened. The war between colonists and Britain began in 1775, on April 19th to be exact, when fighting broke out between the British soldiers and Massachusetts militiamen, the Minutemen, at Concord and Lexington, or Lexington and Concord, depending on whether you live in Lexington or Concord. This was the famous shot heard round the world, immortalized in
We'll have a video on that,
The
too.
Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. So while the colonists actually lost the famous Battle of Bunker Hill, which was technically fought on Breed's Hill, the British suffered such heavy casualties that soon thereafter they were forced to abandon Boston. But then they got some revenge by taking over New York, which they held for most of the rest of the war. But in thinking about the war, it's very important to understand that not all colonists were pro-independence. Like elites in colonies like New York and Pennsylvania were very nervous about all this revolutionary fervor that was whipping up artisans and small-time farmers to think that they deserved to have say in the political process. Oh, it's time for the mystery document?
Sound familiar?
Awesome. I love getting shocked. The rules here are simple. If I guess the author of the mystery document correctly, I do not get the shock pin. If I'm wrong, I do get the shock pin. All right, let's see what we got here. The Americans are properly Britons. They have the manners, habits, and ideas of Britons and have been accustomed to a similar form of government. But Britons could never bear the extremes, either of monarchy or republicanism. Some of their kings have aimed at despotism, but always failed. Repeated efforts have been made toward democracy, and they equally failed. If we may judge of future events by past transactions, in similar circumstances, this would most probably be the case in America, were a republican form of government adopted in our present ferment. All right, so we've got an educated person who thinks that Americans are Britons who will inevitably want to walk a middle path between republicanism and monarchy, and therefore that the revolution is not a good idea. I know it's a colonist because of the reference to our present ferment. All right, I'm going to guess that it is Ben Franklin's son, William Franklin? Ah, dang it! Who is it? Who the hell is Charles Inglis? Charles Inglis? Charles freaking Inglis? I've never even heard of that guy. It's not fair. Ah! Oh, I hate that. Apparently he's a bishop or something. Anyway, people like Inglis remind us that not everyone in the colonies was all fired up to be an independent nation. In fact, in July of 1775, the Continental Congress sent the Olive Branch petition to King George III, suggesting that Americans were loyal British subjects who wanted reconciliation
There's a song for this too. It's a farmer's rebuke.
with the mother country. But then along came Thomas Paine's pamphlet, Common Sense. Why couldn't that have been the mystery document? Common Sense appeared in January of 1776, and it was like the Harry Potter of its time, only with liberty instead of wizard school. Written in relatively straightforward English, the pamphlet contains many powerful rhetorical arguments, like, of more worth is one honest man to society and in the sight of God than all the crowned ruffians that ever lived. Others were just common sense, like this nugget. There is something absurd in supposing a continent to be perpetually governed by an island. Pow! Also, there's the beautiful sentiment, the weapon we have is love. Oh, that's from Harry Potter. I told you they were similar. Ultimately, Paine's arguments all contributed to the idea that America is somehow special, even exceptional. I mean, talking about independence and freedom, he said, the cause of America is in great measure the cause of all mankind. That's powerful stuff, and Paine's pamphlet sold 150,000 copies, and it was extremely widely read. By the way, he still managed to die penniless, and only 8 people attended his funeral because of his vitriolic ridicule of Christianity. But anyway, America eventually declared independence for many reasons, but Paine's persuasive arguments were one important reason. And it marks a moment when the pen truly was, if not more powerful, then at least more important than the sword. I mean, within 6 months of the publication of Common Sense, the Second Continental Congress had declared independence and signed one of the most important documents in the history of the world, which is where we'll pick up next week. Thanks for watching. Crash Course is produced and directed by Stan Muller. Our script supervisor is Meredith Danko. The associate producer is Danica Johnson. The show is written by my high school
we got
history
time for
teacher,
another
Raoul
video.
Meyer, and myself.
Cool. I hope you guys are paying attention.
Now, the American Revolution didn't.
There will be a quiz. I am working on it between all the other stuff I'm doing. Just got to figure out what platform I want to do it on or how I want to do it. But there will be a quiz.
Happened because the colonists were having feelings about Big Mama Britain's increasingly oppressive policies. No, there was a whole set of revolutionary ideas swirling around their thinky parts that, taken together, became a significant cause for the independence movement. And I reckon we ought to talk about it, so if you're ready to get them brain cows milked, Let's get to it. Okay, now right at the beginning, I need to remind you that even as late as 1775, independence from Great Britain was not the main desire of the American colonists. Mainly, they wanted to remain British subjects, but they wanted their imperial parent to stop dumping all over their rights as British subjects. However, in the short span of time between the end of the French and Indian War and the beginning of the American Revolution, certain ideas began to change some of the colonists' views on the relationship between the government and the people. And once these ideas became firmly planted in the colonial imagination, independence started to seem like the only way forward. Oh, and by the way, if you want note guys to follow along with this video and all my videos, check that link in the description. Anyway, it's high time we looked at these revolutionary ideas square in the face, and we're going to break into 3 categories. First, the colonists embraced, big surprise, Enlightenment ideas. But before we explore some of those ideas individually, you have to understand the context. You see, the Enlightenment was first of all a European movement, and lots of Europeans embraced these ideas as well. But even so, no European state experienced revolution on account of these ideas, with the possible exception of the English Civil War. But the colonies in North America were different. You see, for the most part, those who migrated to the North American colonies were able to build a new society from scratch. And that way, without the heavy weight of centuries of social tradition like they had in Europe, the New World was kind of an experimental laboratory for new ways of thinking and living. Therefore, it is not surprising that new ideas about government and the nature of human beings developed by Enlightenment thinkers found eager adopters in this part of the world, and that those ideas created fertile soil for a political revolution. Anyway, let's sit a spell with a few of the most potent Enlightenment ideas that animated the American Revolution. First was the elevation of the individual. In other words, Enlightenment thinkers emphasized that the most basic element of society was the individual human, not collective groups. Second was the idea of natural rights. Thinkers like John Locke argued that every individual human was born with certain rights that came from God, rights like life, liberty, and property. And that, my dear pupil, is an explosive idea, because the implication is that if human rights come from God, then they do not in fact come from a monarch. And that further means that if natural rights are granted by the dang almighty, then monarchs who are not the almighty have no business infringing on those rights. And then related to that is the third Enlightenment idea you need to know, namely the social contract. And this is very timely at this point in the video, because I'm sure you're wondering,
but Heimler, if rights do come from God and a monarch does infringe upon them, then what?
well, that's where the social contract comes in, baby. So thinkers like Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau developed the idea that human societies made up of individuals endowed with natural rights must construct governments of their own will, and that the main purpose of that government is to protect their natural rights. In other words, the power to govern is actually in the hands of the people, and they agreed to give up certain freedoms in exchange for government protection of their rights and security. And that means that if the government becomes a tyrannical turd, thus violating the contract, then the people have the right to overthrow that government and replace it with a new one. And compared to the reigning view of government power, namely the divine right of kings, which basically said that God establishes monarchs, so, do whatever they say, this was a significant departure. Okay, now more briefly, let's consider a second set of ideas that played a role in the independence movement, namely political ideas from the radical Whigs, who were a group of British political theorists. So, educated colonists with a penchant for thinky stuff got an earful of radical Whiggish ideas, which really all came down to this. They warned against political corruption and the danger of tyranny that comes from the arbitrary power of monarchs and aristocrats. And by arbitrary power, they meant power that was hereditary or handed down through family. In that scheme, power was given to the people born in the right family, even if they were dumber than a box of rocks. And so these ideas, along with several others, deeply shaped the American imagination about society and politics, and led them to emphasize individual talent above hereditary privilege. And finally, the third category of revolutionary ideas were religious in nature. You see, the effects of the First Great Awakening still lingered in the American population, which, among other things, had greatly increased the nation's religious identity and fervor. And this had two effects. First, many colonists who had been influenced by this movement perceived the relative liberty they enjoyed in the American colonies as a gift from God. Second, with the Awakening's emphasis on the authority of individual religious experience over against submitting to formal church hierarchies, they had learned to treat systems of authority with suspicion. Therefore, as British policies became more and more oppressive, the widespread adoption of these ideas made many colonists exceedingly wary of any perceived threat to their rights. And so now we begin to see the colonists change their minds about the notion of independence over the course of a few years, and there were several ingredients in that independence stew. First was the convening of the First Continental Congress in 1774 in Philadelphia, which was called in response to the passage of the Intolerable
Hobby husband
Act.
is too slow.
Hi, Hobby. I was just about to pause anyway. This makes me think about how, like, okay, so they felt like their rights were being like trampled on by people who were untouchable, and that kind of makes me feel like what's going on today is like a lot of us feel like we're unable to pursue like our rights, endowed to us and by people from like far away, and it feels so like,
which we talked about in the last video.
Also,
Their
hi,
goal was to
Hobby,
create a
again.
united plan to resist further violations of their rights, which in their mind were still British rights. And so, among other things, the Congress encouraged colonists to continue boycotting British goods. But the point to remember here is that the meeting of the Congress centralized resistance to British policies rather than relying on weaker, more localized resistance. And then the second ingredient was actual armed conflict. So by 1775, fighting had erupted between British soldiers and colonial people in Boston, and 8 colonists had died. And these fights in Lexington and Concord and the additional conflict in the Battle of Bunker Hill led the colonists to convene the Second Continental Congress. And this body served as a provisional government that organized the colonial response to British aggression. And in this series of meetings, which built off the petition of grievances outlined in the First Continental Congress, some delegates argued for negotiation with Britain in order to reestablish a proper colonial relationship with their rights intact. To that end, Congress issued the Olive Branch Petition, which appealed directly to King George III to avoid a full-blown war and reestablish colonial rights, which is to say the fullness of their British rights. But others like Patrick Henry argued loudly that the
I can't wait for you guys to hear his song. It's so whiny. I love it.
British actions had indeed revealed their turdhood, and therefore what was needed was a movement for independence. But even so, those who called for independence were still a minority among the colonists. So, what changed? Well, what changed was in fact the third ingredient, namely the publication of a pamphlet called Common Sense by Thomas Paine. So after the petitions sent by the Continental Congress to the king asking for peace were rejected, colonial resentment reached its peak. And right as that resentment stew reached a boil, Thomas Paine seemed to put words to what the colonists had felt but so far had been unable to articulate. And basically, the common sense of common sense was that independence from Great Britain was the only way forward. And once it was published, this pamphlet sold like mad across the colonies. But of special importance was the kind of arguments Paine used to make his case. First, he made abundant use of Enlightenment ideas like natural rights and social contract and republicanism to demonstrate that Britain's behavior of late amounted to nothing short of tyranny. Second, Paine also made use of biblical arguments, most notably the development of the monarchy in the Old Testament and how God considered it a sin. Additionally, he combined anti-monarchical ideas with calls for popular support of the revolution by appealing to common people. And given how deeply the colonists had been shaped by the Enlightenment and biblical thought, this pamphlet convinced a lot of folks. And so by 1776, the actions of the British and the wide diffusion of these ideas led to a formal Declaration of Independence penned by Thomas Jefferson with editorial help from John Adams and Benjamin Franklin. And it's going to be important for you to remember that Jefferson didn't just think this whole document up with his own magnificent brain. No, he based the ideas of the Declaration off of dozens of state and local declarations, not least the Virginia Declaration of Rights, all of which, when taken together, revealed the unique expression of the American mind. Anyway, the purpose of the Declaration was to effect the formal separation of the colonies from British rule. And as you may have guessed by now, the way Jefferson did that was by making liberal use of Enlightenment ideas like the social contract and natural rights. Okay, click here to watch my other videos for Unit 3, and you can click here to grab my video note guides, which are going to help you cram.
Okay. You have to get one that's at least half hour or less. Oh, no, I'm not going to make you listen to more Hamilton already. Gosh. All right. Here we go. Taxes.
From 1764 until 1774, the British Parliament passed several acts and levied new taxes on the colonies, which helped trigger the American Revolution. This video looks at 4 acts, including the Sugar, Stamp, Townsend, and Intolerable Acts.
The Sugar Act of
I drink,
1764
and I
was a
know
British
things.
law meant to
Again.
regulate
Would
trade,
like you to drink
improve tax
something.
collection, and reduce smuggling in the colonies.
Parliament turned to the colonies to help repay Britain's huge war debts from the French and Indian War and cover future protection costs.
In 1764, Parliament passed the Sugar Act as part of the Revenue Acts. While the Sugar Act reduced taxes on molasses and sugar, it empowered aggressive tax collection by officials. The Sugar Act did raise taxes on several other products and limited the export of lumber and iron from the colonies.
John Otis and I led the colonial resistance to the Sugar Act. The economy and consumers suffered, while merchants went bankrupt. Parliament didn't have the right to its aggressive taxation measures against the colonies.
Public opposition to the Sugar Act was limited, though some merchants stopped buying British luxury goods. Real resistance would start a year later with the Stamp Act. The Stamp Act of 1765 was an act of the British Parliament that imposed new taxes on the colonies to help repay Britain's 7 years war debt and cover the costs of protecting the colonies.
The Stamp Act was passed on March 22, 1765. It required colonists to pay a tax on all paper products, including newspapers, legal documents, books, etc. Also, all paper materials had to be produced on officially stamped paper from Britain.
Violent protests broke out in the colonies against the aggressive tax collectors and officials. I insisted, no taxation without representation. In October, 9 colonies met in New York and called the Stamp Act to Congress to protect Parliament's right to levy taxes on the colonies.
After intense
Just so
pressure,
cheesy, I
Parliament
like it.
repealed the Stamp Act on March 18, 1766. However, on the same day, Parliament passed the Declaratory Act, reaffirming its rights to regulate and tax the colonies.
The Stamp Act and future taxes, such as the Townshend Acts, brought the colonies closer to war with Britain. The Townshend Acts were British laws passed in 1767 that placed taxes on glass, lead, paint, paper, and tea imported into the colonies.
The 4 acts were intended to replace tax revenue lost after the highly unpopular Stamp Act was repealed in 1766.
Britain was badly indebted after the 7 Years' War and needed cash to prop up the failing East India Company. So it turned to the colonies to help cover some of the costs. As I've always said, no taxation without representation. So in 1768, the Massachusetts House of Representatives and other colonial
I don't know why the way he says
sent
it.
petitions to King George III demanding the
tickles
repeal
me.
of these acts. The governor subsequently dissolved the Massachusetts legislature.
On March 5, 1770, ironically the same day as the Boston Massacre, Parliament repealed most of the Townshend Acts while retaining the much despised tax on imported tea.
The Townshend Acts played a crucial role in triggering the American Revolution in 1775. The Intolerable Acts, also known as the Coercive Acts, were 5 laws passed by the British Parliament in 1774 to punish the colonists after the Boston Tea Party.
First, the Boston Port Act closed the harbor until the colonists paid the king and the East India Company for the lost tea and taxes. Secondly, the Massachusetts Government Act revoked the charter of the royal colony and placed it under the control of Parliament.
The Administration of Justice Act, dubbed the Murder Act, was believed to allow
The guy
British
in the blue
officials
looks
to
like
act
he's
with impunity
fainting.
and escape justice. The Quartering Act required
Caught
colonial
him
officials to
mid-stroke.
provide housing to British troops if needed.
Lastly, the Quebec Act greatly enlarged Quebec's borders and allowed for the free practice of Catholicism.
The Intolerable Acts were intended to isolate the radical voices in Massachusetts. Instead, the 13 colonies rallied around a common cause, liberty from the oppressive British rule, by
Okay, hold on. I think I'm gonna run inside and get some. I don't know what I want. Okay, maybe I'll wait till I figure out what I want.
boycotting British goods and convening the First
What's next?
Continental Congress.
What can I leave
in
you guys
September
on?
1774.
Oh, perfect. Excellent. Here's a scene from the movie The Patriot, which is the most. Okay, I have a thing to talk about before I go skedaddle to get some food and make you guys watch this. Then I'll have to cut it out in the YouTube video, so it's perfect. All right, so this is the movie The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson, who plays a guy whose wife dies by the hands of the government, and he must seek revenge upon them. Oh, I guess instead of the government, the monarchy. And he also plays the same character in Braveheart, which is really funny. And I think he's in The Passion of the Christ too, right? Or did he make that one? But it's just really funny to me that he's like cursed to relive the death of his loved ones and fight a monarchy. But this is from The Patriot. It is not very accurate at all, but I thought it would be fun to include because Americans love this movie. It's like Americans love Sweet Caroline, The Patriot, and shower beers. Cheeseburger.
Christ, there's a boomer around here.
Bitter. There is one right on screen. I mean, I guess I'm on screen too.
And our last, if we vote a levy.
I'll be right back.
Our first order of business will
Wait,
be
that's the wrong
addressed by
one.
Colonel Harry Burwell of the Continental Army. Colonel Burwell.
You all know why I'm here. I'm not an orator, and I would not try to convince you of the worthiness of our cause. I'm a soldier, and we are at war. From Philadelphia, we expect a declaration of independence. 8 of the 13 colonies have levied money in support of a continental army. I ask that South Carolina be the 9th.
Massachusetts and Virginia may be at war, but South Carolina is not. Hear, hear.
This is not a war for the independence of 1 or 2 colonies, but for the independence of 1 nation.
And, yes, what nation is that? An American nation. There is no such nation, and to speak of one is treason. We are citizens of an American nation, and our rights are being threatened by a tyrant 3,000 miles away.
Would you tell me, please, Mr. Howard, why should I trade one tyrant 3,000 miles away for 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away? An elected legislature can trample a man's rights as easily as a king can.
Captain Martin, I understood you to be a patriot.
If you mean by patriot, am I angry about taxation without representation? Well, yes, I am. Should the American colonies govern themselves independently? I believe they can, and they should. But if you're asking me, am I willing to go to war with England? Well, then the answer is most definitely no.
This from the same Captain Benjamin Martin, whose fury was so famous during the Wilderness Campaign?
I was intemperate in my youth.
Temperance can be a convenient disguise for fear.
Mr. Middleton, I fought with Captain Martin under Washington in the French and Indian War. There's not a man in this room, or anywhere for that matter, to whom I would more willingly trust my life.
There are alternatives to war. We take our case before the king. We plead with him.
Yes, we've tried that.
Well, then we try again and again, if necessary, to avoid a war.
Benjamin, I was at Bunker Hill. The British advanced 3 times, and we killed over 700 of them at point-blank range, and still they took the ground. That is the measure of their resolve. If your principles dictate independence, then war is the only way. It has come to that.
I have 7 children. My wife is dead. Now, who's to care for them if I go to war?
Wars are not fought only by childless men.
Granted. But mark my words. This war will be fought not on the frontier or on some distant battlefield, but amongst us, among our homes. Our children will learn of it with their own eyes. And the innocent will die with the rest of us.
Are you asleep? Back, I got key.
And because I will not fight, I will not cast a vote that will send others to fight in my stead.
And your principles.
I'm a parent. I haven't got the luxury of principles.
Walking that fast. And then they all die. Well, some of these people die. But anyway, that's what's going on in the colonies. I don't want to cover any more of the tariffs. I don't know if I want to talk about Thomas Paine. Here's the Declaration of Independence. There you go.
On June 7th, Richard Henry Lee of Virginia introduced resolutions in Congress declaring that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown. Meanwhile, a letter to a Pennsylvania newspaper signed only Republicus declared that it was time for independent Americans to call themselves by some name and proposed the United States of America.
Beautiful.
A 5-man committee was named to...
I bet it was Benjamin Franklin. I bet he... You know, Benjamin Franklin? Was it Benjamin Franklin? One of the two. Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Jefferson wanted the... Anyway, Thomas Jefferson and or Benjamin Franklin wanted the national bird to be like the country bird country symbol, whatever the thing is. They didn't want it to be a bald eagle. They wanted it to be a turkey. And I think that's really funny.
To produce a document setting forth the reasons for making such a momentous decision. 33-year-old Thomas Jefferson of Virginia was assigned to write the first draft. He would draw from Aristotle, Cicero, John Locke, and the Virginia Declaration of Rights, written by his friend.
Wasn't Ben being gay in France most of the time? Yeah, he was. He was such a slut. Oh my God. He was, I think he was in the Hellfire Club is what it was called. And they would have like sex parties in like the catacombs of France. He was a nut.
George Mason. But his goal, he said, was to distill what he called an expression of the American mind. He worked in a rented room on Market Street, fueled by cups of tea brought to him by his 14-year-old valet, Robert Hemings, the son of an enslaved servant, Elizabeth Hemings, and Jefferson's father-in-law.
When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions.
Yeah, it is a tea mention. Wait, do we have a sound for tea? I don't know if I have a sound for tea. That one. I have a lot of gay noises.
Of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Everything that we believe in comes out of the revolution. Our ideas of liberty, equality, it's the defining event of our history. All men are created equal.
God, it feels so patriotic right now.
And important.
High key, I'm getting kind of emotional. I'm like, damn, we're such a beautiful fucking country.
Phrase in our history. If we don't celebrate it, we have no reason to be a people. And Lincoln knew that, and that's why he says, all on it to Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson was proposing something altogether new and radical in the world. It was the American people's right, he argued. It was their duty to throw off tyranny and learn to govern themselves.
That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed.
This is actually going to work out perfectly because, like, this is where we're about to leave it before we get into the actual Revolutionary War, which will start tomorrow. And we're about to switch over to Minecraft, so that works out, like, perfect. Go me.
That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these
Sorry,
ends,
I'm so
it is the
lame.
right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
Since no one had authority over anyone else by birthright, Jefferson was affirming that all legitimate power came from the people themselves, even if he, the owner of hundreds of human beings, could never make that truth a reality in his own life.
His relationship to slavery is foundational. From the beginning to the end, this institution bounded his life, even though he knew it was wrong. How could you know something is wrong and still do it? Well, that is the human question for all of us.
The Declaration of Independence, we remember.
Trying to warm myself up because I'm going to have to go underground in Minecraft, and I am not looking forward to that at all. I need iron ore.
Remember it primarily from its opening preamble. The most famous sentences in our history, quoted ever since as a mandate for expanding liberty for other people. But most of the document is something else. It is a list of crimes allegedly committed.
It's a map, and I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence. Nicolas Cage was correct.
By the king.
As a Florida or Texan man, this is great. You know what I found out today? There's an Edinburgh, Texas. And I was like, what the fuck? Bitter could be from Texas, but that's Scotland. So, wait. Yeah, Edinburgh, Scotland. Nick Cage is looking rough as fuck there.
That
I'm
means
gonna be
that
the new Nick
when
Cage.
the Patriot leaders decide that they want independence, then they must persuade their people in the colonies, now states, that the king has forfeited his just authority. The purpose of the Declaration of Independence is to declare the king is no longer sovereign.
Throughout history, most people had been subjects, living under authoritarian rule. All experience hath shown, Jefferson wrote, that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable.
Ooh, that might be a good caption.
George III himself, not the Parliament, was now the enemy. The Declaration denounced him as unfit to be the ruler of a free people, guilty of 18 injuries and usurpations, all meant to
I'm from Edinburgh, Texas.
establish, it read, absolute tyranny. It charged that he had invaded the rights of the people, sent swarms of officers to harass them, imposed a standing army in peacetime, levied taxes without the colonists' consent.
Does this sound familiar at all, guys? Does it kind of sound like maybe what our government is doing to us currently? Does it? Yeehaw, I say in my kilt.
And was now waging war against them. Dunmore's proclamation had deepened fears of slave uprisings, and reports that the governor of Canada had enlisted native people to resist the invasion there further inflamed Congress. In the 18th and final charge against the king, Jefferson did all he could to exploit their fury.
He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages,
God,
sexes,
he's so gross sometimes.
and conditions.
Like he could
Proclaiming
write, but
the equality of
ew.
all men was a genuinely revolutionary idea. But that equality was not yet extended to Native Americans, enslaved or free blacks, the poor, or any woman.
We'll go over some of their
Jefferson's
stories too.
original list of injuries had also included the charge that George III was somehow responsible for the Atlantic slave trade. He called it cruel war against human nature itself. The other delegates refused to
Not wrong.
adopt that charge. The Declaration of Independence was formally ratified on July 4th, 1776. Just 1,337 words that ended with the phrase, "We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." When Rhode Island delegate Stephen Hopkins, who had palsy, signed the document, he is said to have remarked, "My hand trembles, but my heart does not." It was first read aloud to a cheering crowd in the State House yard at Philadelphia on July 8th. It was soon published in 29 newspapers and greeted by parades and celebratory volleys of gunfire throughout the newly united states.
Boston,
We love our
Massachusetts.
guns.
When Colonel Crafts read the proclamation, great attention was given to every word, and every face appeared joyful.
Dorothy, if you're in the chat, is the State House is still there, right? Like the original one?
The king's arms were taken down from the State House, and every vestige of him from every place in which it appeared, and burned in King Street. Thus ends royal authority in this state, and all the people shall say, Amen. Abigail Adams.
On July 9th in New York, General Washington ordered the Declaration read to his troops. Hearing the list of George III's alleged crimes so angered the men that a number of them raced down Broadway to Bowling Green, tied ropes to the statue of the king, and pulled it to the ground. Pieces of the shattered statue were dispatched by wagon to Litchfield, Connecticut, where patriots melted the gilded lead into bullets.
America, man.
42,088 of them.
The one where they signed the Declaration of Independence.
Far to the north at Fort Ticonderoga, the battered survivors of the failed invasion of Canada were assembled so that the Declaration could be read to them. When it was over, an eyewitness said, "The language of every man's countenance was, 'Now we are a people. We have a name among the states of the world.'" Among those who heard the Declaration read at Ticonderoga was Private Lemuel Haynes, a free African-American from Granville, Massachusetts. He understood right away what it might mean for people like him, and wrote an essay entitled "Liberty Further Extended."
Liberty is a jewel which was handed down to man from the cabinet of heaven. It hath pleased God to make of one blood all nations of men for to dwell upon the face of the earth. And as all are of one species, therefore we may reasonably conclude that liberty is equally as precious to a black man as it is to a white one, and bondage equally as intolerable to the one as it is to the other.
The Declaration of Independence was deeply significant to people at the margins. It gave them a space of moral argument. It gave them a space of legal argument that could be leveraged to reshape United States democracy and become a part of it. And we are going to push every lever we had to be able to make this democracy real and to make these visions, these values real, rather than hypocritical.
Hi, this is David Schmidt.
Hi, David
I hope
Schmidt.
you enjoyed that excerpt
Okay.
from the American Revolution. A new
Thanks. Okay. All right. You guys ready for some gaming? I am, because I'm good. But, bro, I love the American Revolution. Like, it's just like a combination of like really good legal work, and like legal work is just like a fairy language, which is really cool because like words mean exactly what they mean on the paper. There's not like this weird convoluted thing. It's like direct. Like, I love it. I've learned so much. I'm so glad. Minecraft. That's not how I spell mine. No. Oink. Wait till we get to the battles. There's so much tea. So we've laid the groundwork, right? We know where we're going for everything. We know we're going to a revolution. We know about the Boston Massacre. We are aware. Okay, we're aware. Now there's so much fucking good shit that happens in the middle. Like there's people like infighting like all the time. There's a guy who fell in love with an 18-year-old who was like married to somebody else and turned like from the American side to the British side and then got his ass handed to him. His name is Benedict Arnold. And it's really funny. I have a drunk history episode on him. There's so much good shit. We're gonna cover some of the heroes too, like some of like the historical figures outside of just like, you know, Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr and George Washington. But so excited. I love this country. Volume on down. Or my world is what was I doing? Oh, I wanted to get all right, so I know I need to get out away from that cactus. Iron ore. And I know I need to make that house. That way. I need to eat. How do I can't remember any of these buttons. I do feel kind of boomer coded saying that. Oh shit. I was like, oh no. No. It is because like too, like I use the Switch a lot. Like also Fallout jump is Y, I think. I mean you can set the buttons to whatever. I'll stop. Shaft that isn't cut. Oh, I forgot to take my hat off. I'm not History Charlie anymore. Sorry. History Charlie's done for the night. Might even turn the lights down. Make it Charlie. Oh, wait. Okay, I do have torches. I did not realize till I turned around. I was like, oh my god. Enough. Alright, buckle up, everybody. I'm probably gonna die. Still have that thing that told me to put on. Oh. What else gives you... Oh, Blue's not in the chat. Neither is Hobby. Ugh. They're like the experts in Minecraft. Can't lose you in the cave already. Hi, Kenny. Okay, alright. I have to ask. What's everybody's system? What's your system for, like, going through... If you play Minecraft, how do you lay your torches out? What's your, like... How do you do it? Oh. Pretty... That iron? I'm a sloppy torch. You just throw your torch everywhere? No rhyme or reason? Oh no! Oh no, that would be awful. I could never. Wait, what did I pick up? Hold on. Please don't be copper. Wait. Iron. Okay, cool. Cool. I keep getting lost. Alright. Got the iron. Do I have to smelt the iron? Is that how this works? Oh, I shut myself in the door. Alright, so I have some wood. That go there? Yes, but I'm probably gonna need more. Probably burn the... I need more torches. But I can go chop down more wood. Okay, yeah. The sound effects are so good. 3. Okay. Quick add you. Yes, I can. Excellent. All right. We are cooking, literally. Yes. Oh my god. And I have a ladder on me? Oh my god. Game on. Don't need yet. I'll take the ladder. I'll leave the cobblestone. I'll leave the regular sand. Granite can stay. I'll need the food. Don't need the sugar cane yet. Wait. Flour. No! I like to put my torches on the left side because I found out that when you go through like a maze, if you put your hand on the left side, it's easy to get to the center. At least that's what I've heard. I don't know if that's actually true. Anytime I've done it, it's worked. But also, like, I go to like kids parks, you know? Anybody remember where that there it is. Oh wait, I need water. Oh, I could probably plant my sugar cane. I'll remember that. I'm always worried I'm gonna fall into one of them. Still don't know how I want to do it, but I'm gonna make that my house. Unless it like renders in more and I hate it. Oh my god, there's like snow on the backside. Oh my god, this is perfect. There's even like a little stairwell right here. Oh my god, how convenient. I had no idea. How are we gonna... So fun. Okay. I only have 2 sandstone on me. That might have been... Alright. This will absolutely be secure and safe. Up to code. Teddy Roosevelt would be proud. Maybe I'm just Teddy Roosevelt incarnated. mean, that's why I love national parks so much. And hate Monopoly. Oh. Oh, no! I keep throwing my shovel. No. Okay, is it getting dark? Or am I just... Oh, it's... I'm like, oh, I could... Wait, where's my house? I think I came from this direction. Oh, no. Ah, there it is. I need to lay a path. Oh, that's the wrong one. That little bunny's so cute. Oh. Oh. Watch that cactus. I can't wait to decorate my walls. It always sounds like I'm breaking my legs. I need that mutton. Oh, I have the mutton. Nope. That's coal. No! Oh, no! I was trying to eat the mutton. It was because I was looking at the bed. I am my biggest enemy. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I have to remember to put the torches down the rest. Oh. Okay, so now I just need to build like straight. How am I gonna build over? Okay. Hold on. Curious. All right, I got this. No, I don't. Nope. I have to hit the right button first. Why aren't you? Am I too far? Oh! There we go. I'm gonna fall to my death. I know it. Don't remember. Did I take any of the sandstone? I did. Okay. This might be like my only saving grace. Need to get like... down. Blocks away. Nope. Oh. There we go. All right. No. Ugh. No. Oh, I hate this game. Ladder. I'll worry about the ladder later. Oh. Fun. Is that the layer below? Yeah, okay. It seems a lot bigger from below. Oh, but I should probably... Hold on. Boop. 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 I should give it a minute before I jump, right? I'm sure. Ah! Ah! No, not the zombies! No! I only have a bucket out right now. Sun's out. Why are you making those noises? Oh, fuck you, dude. Ow, okay. Just got me. What? Where are my torches? Oh, there's like a dark spot. Guess I don't need that sand anymore. Hate sand. Of course. It's in everything. Okay, well, that mission's accomplished. I do still need to get more water. And oh, if I take some water from the bottom of the waterfall, will it affect my if I take some water from the bottom of the waterfall, will it affect my source block? Ah, spider. It won't let me. Okay. Ooh, this is cute. Oh my god, that's so cool. Is that a tower? Is that like a witch tower over there? Oh my god. Oh, it's a tree, I think. That looks so cool. Over there, it looks like a lighthouse. That's really cool. It reminds me of, the tops. Wait, no. Lucky 38. Oh, it's a tree. Okay. Where did I go? Alright. Water. Collected. I guess I could have gone to this one too. Oh my god, the lily pads. Cute. Oh, there's a cave right there too? Oh, hell yeah. I think that's a little cave entrance. So this, oh, is that a skeleton? Oh no, how do I run? Can I run? Oh god. Thoughts and prayers. How do I jump? A? Oh my god, this would be a bad time to forget how to use this controller. Where are my torches? I'm doing pretty good evading these guys. For now. Wait, there they are. There's some coal too. I do have a saddle. Does that mean I can just get a horse? Is that how that works? Thought I heard like arrows. Oh, those will need to be dirt though, right? To be sugarcane? Oh, almost walked on the cactus again. Oh! Nope. Nope. It's impossible not to look at something. Just eat the meat. Oh, I'm not hungry. Okay. That would explain it. Yeah, or a pig, I think. I heard a few different noises. All of which terrify me. Alright, I need the sugar cane. I have a bunch of it. I probably could just make the books now. And like, I know if I change the button, I'll immediately use the button it had been. Here, pig again. Oh, no! 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 Why didn't anybody tell me that would happen? No! Oh, because I can't. Oh, I have the horse armor too, the diamond and the golden I got yesterday. That was really cool. Are there more temples like this? Oh, I need more water. Oh, there was water right here? I forgot. I need more water. I'm not happy with that level of flow. Or maybe. Oh, I didn't get any water? Now I lost the water? There it is. Okay. I'm pretty okay with that. They let you, like, put it right there. Okay. Alright. How much sugar cane did I need to make a bunch of Ow! Damn it. Oh, there's paper. Paper? Book. No. Screen, like, moved. Book. I need leather. Leather's from a cow. So, R.I.P. the next cow I stumble upon. Wait. How many leather? One. I'm gonna need, like, 9. 9 cows. Small one. There they are. Oh. No, get back here. Oh, he's so quick. Got him. I guess I have to... It's random. It's not just like... Oh, no. How many cows am I gonna have to kill? There's not any cows down there. Boy, I hope I remember how to get home. Oh, I heard a pig. The, like, water behind this leaf kind of scared me. Blue was reading me all kinds of creepypasta yesterday about Hero something. Herobrine? I'm sure he'll come in and correct me immediately. Nope. Is it hard to tame a horse? In Minecraft, not in real life. That's a hole. Like, can I make that jump? Probably not. But, you know what would be helpful? Boop. I hope I remember that's there later. I guess I kind of just have to look for the big floaty thing. Oh, is that it over there? Oh, jeez. Huh. Oh, I'm glad there was not a bottom there. Or a block underneath it. 3. Deep. You're safe for now. Yes, there's my float. Maybe I'll make it the egg carrier. Like a Sonic ship. Oh, ah! Or a blimp. Maybe a blimp. I haven't seen a single cow aside from— oh, look at those trees. Aside from the one we saw. I mean, I guess you guys would know that. Jeez. I like the way those trees are. It makes it seem all like really dark. I like that. How they're like, ow, bigger like that. I feel like I could make my house in one of them. Time for me to sleep. I expect full base on that floating island for next time. Next time, you mean tomorrow? Good night. I'll talk to you later. Sleep well. My legs hurt. Am I going in the right way still? It's so, like, kind of like spooky over here. I like it. That's pretty. Game is really pretty for being just like— oh fuck, wait, where's my house? Oh shit. Oh shoot. Oh, succotash. Oh, I gotta get high. I gotta be able to see, like, the area above me. Oh no. This is gonna go poorly. Oh, now there's cows everywhere. Oh god, it's a creeper! No! Oh, oh god! Please. Oh my god, are those skeletons? Oh no! Oh no! Where is my home? I have no idea where I am. I'm so lost. What are those? Oh my god! I'm probably not safe in the water, am I? Oh no, something's attacking me! Oh no, it's a creeper! Oh god! don't see any light anywhere. That was dumb on my part. Oh no, okay. Shit. I'm like off map. I have to figure out which way it's gonna get me moving more inland on the map. No, come on. That creeper is waiting for me. I gotta get to like higher ground where I can try to see maybe. That was so dumb. I should not have gone that far. Okay, so I need Y. Y. No, Y is up and down. Okay. Okay, I think I'm going the right way. Do I want to be doing X? That's bigger. Although, what is smaller? Like, what is the... So lost. Maybe if I get to that top of that mountain, figure something out. Going down, so maybe I'm headed in possibly the right direction. Higher up the map. Although I don't even know if this is the direction of my house. I'm gonna be honest. I really should remember to write the coordinates down. Okay, I'm headed more south. Kind of looks like a village over there. But I will not be tempted. Ah, a squid. Still going. Fuck, there's a zombie in the way. I wish I had paid attention to what I was doing. Oh, God. The whole island of cows over there. Thank God the sun's coming. Oh, but there's some skeletons. Never mind. Oh, they're shooting me? Who's shooting me? Oh, dude. So, alright. Now that I'm in a somewhat flat spot. Flat spot would be down. Not moving. This episode is Charlie tries to find where she lives after looking at cows. The Baka Vaka hunt. Okay, there's a big rock. Should I just die? Because I'll keep all my loot, right? Oh, lava. I could use that. How can... Oh, wait a minute. Is that tree that I thought was like the tops? Remember we saw through that rock? I think I should just die. Oh, my legs. Oh, I could drown. That would be slow and painful though. Gotta get from like a high enough. And hey, that kind of looks familiar. Things I'd like to have time tonight. Okay, maybe if I jump off here. Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Ah! Oh! Oh! Oh no! I botched the job. Guys, I can't kill myself. Oh, that folded it. Boy, I hope I had keep loot on. Oh my god, wait. I definitely had it on. Wait. No, I definitely had it on. Wait. No. Oh no. Oh no. No. No, I definitely checked it. No. No, 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 no. Oh. It's not letting me enable it. Oh no. Oh no. Well, that note, I'm gonna get out of here for the night, but don't you leave just yet because we're gonna raid out. I'm disappointed in myself. Thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate every single one of you every time. It's wonderful having you. Time. That being said, I will be back tomorrow. We'll be continuing our education on the American Revolution and the birth of this nation. And we will also be doing possibly more Minecraft. I'm upset with myself. But for now, we're going to raid out. I think it's a little early for 10. All bigger channels. All right. Never mind then. On that note, I'll be seeing you guys later. Have a safe night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.